I was slicing apples to pack Emily's lunchbox when the yelling started. At first, I didn't even look up. Jessica's voice always echoed through the house, sharp, rushed, unyielding. But this time, something in her tone made my hands freeze. "Do you even realize what you've done, Mary?" she screamed from the hallway. "They're investigating us. You talked to them. God knows what you said." I turned slowly, wiping my hands on the dish towel draped over my shoulder. Emily had left for school just 15 minutes ago. I had packed her lunchbox, slipped in a little note that read, "Love you, sunshine," and watched her skip onto the bus like every other morning. The house should have been quiet by now. Instead, Jessica stormed into the kitchen in that silk robe she wore until nearly noon, clutching her phone like it had personally offended her. "CPS called. Do you know what that means?" she hissed. "We're being investigated. They could take Emily away." My chest turned to ice. "What?" I asked, stunned. I. What happened?" She slammed the phone down on the counter, and just then Mike, my son, appeared behind her. Silent, arms crossed. That blank expression he always wore during conflict, the one that said he wouldn't take a side. Not even his mother's. "Someone at school reported something," Jessica snapped. "They think we're unstable, negligent, because of something you said." I blinked. I only spoke to her teacher last week. Ms. Randall asked if Emily had been sleeping well. I just said she seemed a little tired lately, probably because things at home were a bit tense. "You mean we argue too much?" Jessica said bitterly. "That's what you told them. You made us look like monsters." "No," I whispered, heart pounding. "I didn't say anything like that. Just that sometimes Emily seems a bit stressed in the mornings and, well, there's been some arguing." "And you didn't think that mattered," she snapped. "You handed them the perfect excuse to get into our lives." I turned to Mike. "I didn't mean to." He didn't look at me. "You should have kept quiet." The air in the room turned thick like wet cement. Sticky. Suffocating. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My throat tightened, my ears buzzed. I didn't know what else to say. Nothing I said would matter now. Jessica stepped closer, her voice low but sharp as a blade. "You live here rent-free, act like Emily is your daughter. You cook whatever you want, say whatever you want, and now you've put this entire family at risk. For what? To feel important again." That sentence stabbed straight through me. "I never tried to replace you," I said, barely above a whisper. "No," she sneered. "You just always interfere." Upstairs, Emily's bedroom door creaked. Soft footsteps sounded, then stopped. She must have heard the shouting. Again. I thought of her clutching that teddy bear she never let go of at night when her parents fought. I thought of the time I found her hiding in the closet, not crying, just silent, staring at the wall like it was the only safe place left. I shook my head. "I only answered a few questions. I didn't lie. I didn't even mention your names." "Don't play innocent, Mom," Mike said. "You always say things that sound harmless, but make people question." Jessica folded her arms. "I want you out. Today." The room deflated like a balloon slowly being punctured. "I'm your mother," I said, not to argue, just to remind. "I changed your diapers, made your first Halloween costume, held you when your father walked out. And now, you're a burden," he cut in. "We're trying to do what's best for our daughter." That word burden hit harder than anything else. I wasn't even a person to them anymore. Just a threat. An inconvenience. A ticking time bomb they wanted to defuse before others heard the ticking. I nodded slowly. "I'll pack my things." Jessica didn't say thank you. Mike didn't offer to help. No one asked where I'd go or if I had somewhere to stay. I walked into the guest room, the tiny one beside the laundry, always smelling like mildew and detergent, and sat on the edge of the bed. I didn't have much. A few sweaters, a toothbrush. a worn-out novel I never finished. I stuffed everything into the old suitcase I brought when I moved in 5 years ago after a fall, broke my left hip, and wiped out my retirement savings. Back then, they said it would be just a few months. Back then, they welcomed me. I zipped up the suitcase. As I walked down the hallway, I passed Emily's room. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, legs swinging teddy bear clutched tight. When she saw me, her eyes widened. "Grandma," she whispered. I didn't respond. I couldn't. She slid off the bed and ran to wrap her arms around my waist. "Where are you going?" I knelt slowly, knees creaking, brushing her hair aside. "I have to go away for a little while, sweetheart," I said. "But you'll be okay." Her eyes filled with tears. "Don't go. I'll call you when I can." I promised, though I wasn't sure they'd even let me. Jessica's voice rang down the hall. "Emily, get back in your room." Emily flinched. I kissed her forehead and stood. She didn't let go of me until the last second. I walked out the front door with a suitcase, no plan, and a heart left out in the cold. No one watched me leave. The door closed behind me without a sound. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I wasn't welcome there anymore. I found a small room at the end of a street in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. The house was old, its paint peeling, and the room was on the second floor behind a 24-hour laundromat. The rent wasn't cheap, but the landlady, a widow in her 70s with a thick nasal voice, didn't ask many questions. I paid for the first month in cash and didn't leave my full name. She just said, "Stay as long as you want. No smoking, no trouble." The room was the size of a shoebox. A single iron bed with a mattress sunken in the middle. By the window was a rickety desk tilted to the right. An electric heater buzzed nonstop, and a torn curtain hung crooked over half the window pane. I opened my suitcase, folded my sweaters into the jammed drawer, put my pills and toothbrush on the sink shelf, and taped a sticky note next to the mirror. "Breathe. You're not there anymore." At first, I didn't feel lonely. I felt relieved. No Jessica yelling. No heavy silence from Mike. No sound of Emily's slippers shuffling down the hallway at night, too scared to call for anyone but me. I bought a box of instant oatmeal, a few bananas, a tin of chamomile tea, and the cheapest toilet paper I could find. That was all I thought I needed. In the evenings, I sat in front of the tiny old TV volume, just loud enough to drown out the washing machines and the young couple arguing next door. I didn't watch anything, just listened. I needed sound that wasn't aimed at me. On the third day, I went to the pharmacy to buy vitamins. The cashier asked, "Do you live around here?" I gave a half smile. For now. I didn't call Emily. I didn't dare. I didn't call Mike either, of course. Not because I was angry. Because I knew they wouldn't pick up. Unless they needed something. A week later, early in the morning, when Portland was still wrapped in the damp mist of late October, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something in me pressed green. "Mrs. Mary." A woman's voice came on, polite but hesitant. "This is Ms. Randall, Emily's teacher." My grip tightened. "Yes, is Emily all right?" "She's physically okay," she said slowly. "But since you left, she's been very quiet. She doesn't talk to the other kids, doesn't join story time. Yesterday, she spent almost the whole day under her desk." I closed my eyes. "Did you talk to her parents?" "I did," she replied. "They said she's being difficult or putting on a show. But I don't think so. I'm calling because she asked me 3 times if you were still alive." I clutched the sleeve of my sweater to stop my hand from shaking. "Would you like me to tell her something?" Ms. Randall asked softly. I took a deep breath. Just tell her. I miss her. And I haven't forgotten my promise to call. I hung up and sank to the floor. I had spent my whole life trying not to be a burden. But Emily was the only one who ever made me forget I was afraid of needing someone. A 6-year-old girl who collected pebbles, hated American cheese, and once asked me, "Grandma, do you think the moon has a smell?" She used to be the only reason I could bear that house. I looked around the room, tiny, poor, but at least mine. No one called me a freeloader here. No one eyed my dinner. But there was no Emily either. I started to wonder how long could I live like this. 3 days later, I received a letter. Not handwritten, it was a notice from the CPS office with a return address from a field office near Multnomah County. The bold print read, "We have received reports from the educational environment and are continuing oversight of the home of Michael and Jessica Simmons." Nothing mentioned me. Nothing about Emily. But the final line made my spine go cold. If you have any updated information related to the safety or well-being of minor child Emily Simmons, DOB 11-19-2017, please contact assigned caseworker, Ms. Alicia Eng. They were still watching. And I was the only one who truly knew how Emily was feeling. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window watching the street lamp flicker like an unsteady heartbeat. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending I had left because I wanted to. I hadn't walked away. I had been shut out. I remember that day clearly, a Thursday, with a light drizzle falling, and I had wrapped myself in the green wool scarf Emily gave me last Christmas. She said the color made me look like a flying tree. I didn't really get it, but I laughed anyway. I walked Emily to school like every morning. Her parents had slept in not because they were tired, but because they had argued until past 1 a.m. the night before. The bedroom door had slammed shut after someone shouted, "I told you not to talk like that in front of the kid." Emily didn't cry. She just curled up next to me on the bed, wide-eyed, holding that fox plushie with one torn ear. I held her until morning and made her favorite cheese muffins for breakfast. No one in the house touched them. When we got to school, I stopped at the gate like always. Emily waved. "Don't forget to come to the dance performance on Monday, okay?" I nodded. "I won't forget, my little angel." At that moment, Ms. Randall stepped out of the classroom. She was in her 30s, soft eyes, and always spoke like she was reading a bedtime story. She gave me a polite nod. "Good morning, Mrs. Mary. Emily's always on time." I smiled and was about to walk away when she stopped me. "Oh, may I ask you something?" I paused. Lately, I've noticed Emily has trouble focusing, especially after weekends. Has anything happened at home? I mean, she looks very tired on Monday mornings. And sometimes when there's a loud noise in class, she crawls under the table. I wasn't surprised. I'd seen her flinch every time a door slammed. I'd seen her cover her ears when the TV volume got cranked up during one of her parents' fights. I lowered my voice. "Maybe the house gets a bit loud. Her parents argue a lot, mostly at night. But I always try to get her to sleep early." Ms. Randall frowned. "Oh, so she still shares a room with you?" "Not exactly," I said, a little unsure. "I sleep in the small room next to the laundry area, but Emily sneaks in when her parents fight. Sometimes I wake up and she's right next to me, fast asleep, holding her plushie." I thought I was telling a sweet story. A small memory between a grandma and her granddaughter. But Ms. Randall's face had lost its warmth. She simply said, "I see. Thank you, Mrs. Mary." We said goodbye, and I walked back home. My shoes soaked through with rainwater. I didn't think much of it. Just a normal chat with a teacher. But 3 days later, while I was in my little room surrounded by old newspapers and instant oatmeal, the phone rang. This time it wasn't an unknown number. It was from Multnomah County. I answered, still thinking it was about an unpaid bill. Hello, this is Alicia Eng from Oregon Child Protective Services. I'd like to confirm a few details about Emily Simmons. Do you have a moment to talk? My heart dropped into my stomach. Yes, I said slowly. Is something wrong? I just need to verify some information we received from a mandatory reporter. It seems Emily's home environment might not be stable, and you're noted as the adult she's closest to outside of her biological parents. I was gripping the phone so tightly, my hand went numb. I don't know what I can help with. We just want to confirm something you may have said to the teacher. Did you mention loud arguments at night that might be affecting Emily's sleep? That she often comes to your room to feel safe? I didn't know whether to nod or shake my head. I felt like I had triggered a bomb without realizing it. Can you confirm that I swallowed hard? Yes. I only told the truth. But I didn't think it would lead to anything serious. Ms. Alicia's voice remained calm. We understand. And the truth is what matters most. If you have any more information or if Emily contacts you, please call us right away. After the call, I sat motionless in that room for nearly an hour. My phone face down on the table, my eyes staring at the sticky note I'd written, "Breathe. You're not there anymore." I started to understand I wasn't there anymore, yes, but my heart had never left Emily. I knew they would call. I just didn't think it would happen so soon. That day, just past 10 a.m., I was folding a stack of hand-washed towels when the phone rang. It wasn't an unknown number. It was Mike. The first time he'd called since I left. I stared at the screen for a moment. My hands trembled, but not from joy. I didn't believe my son was calling because he missed his mother. I picked up. "Hello, Mom." His voice was low, tense. Nothing like the little boy who used to cry out for me in panic when the car stalled in the middle of the road. "What's wrong, Mike?" Silence. Then Jessica's voice. No speaker needed. She was loud enough to cut through anything. "You told them, didn't you?" she screamed. "You're the reason they came here." I froze. I don't even know who CPS. Mom. Mike snapped. Child Protective Services. They just came to the house. They're reviewing our case. They said there was an anonymous report about an unstable home and emotional risks. And that report had word for word what you told Emily's teacher. I couldn't breathe. My lips were dry. I didn't report anyone. I only answered Emily's teacher. "Oh my God," Jessica cut in. "You're unbelievable. Ever since you moved in, I've had this feeling, like something was off. You were always listening, always watching, pretending to be saintly. And now it's clear. You sat there like some old rat, storing up every mistake and then ran off to tell strangers. No, I couldn't finish the sentence. Mike didn't care. You don't understand what you've done. They could take Emily away. They could cut our benefits, cancel our Medicaid, shut everything down." Jessica shouted behind him. "You've ruined everything. Because of you, she could end up in the system. Because of you, we could lose everything." "Emily's not just yours," I said, my voice rising for the first time. "She's my granddaughter, too. I have a right to care." "No," Jessica hissed like a blade through air. "You have no rights. You're just a house guest. Someone nobody invited." I stood still. A guest. I used to think that house was my home, that I was helping them, helping when Mike lost his job, helping when Jessica worked late nights, helping when Emily burned up with fever in the middle of a cold winter night. I thought that was what family did. But now I was just a guest. The teacher reported because she's required to. I said, trying to stay calm. I can't control that. I just answered a few questions. You're always the victim, aren't you? Mike interrupted. It's always, I just told the truth. I was just concerned. But you never think about the consequences. Jessica grabbed the phone, her voice sharp and cold as ice. Listen to me, Mary. You'd better cut ties with us completely. Don't call, don't text, don't show up at Emily's school. You've done enough. And if they take her, I'll tell them it's your fault. I'll tell them everything that you manipulated us, that you set us up. Believe me, I'll make them believe it. I don't remember how I hung up. I only remember looking down and realizing my hand was gripping the towel so hard my nails left dents in my skin. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood up, walked to the sink, turned on the faucet, and washed my hands as if trying to scrub off something I couldn't see. That evening I got a message. Not from Mike, not from Jessica, from an unknown number. They said awful things about you, but I don't believe them. E. I read it again and again. Simple. Short. But it was the only thread I had left connecting me to Emily. I didn't reply right away. I knew her phone might be monitored. I just placed my hand over my heart. And for the first time since leaving that house, I felt something like a real heartbeat. Not fear, but hope. I came back on a pale gray afternoon. The Oregon sky hung heavy with clouds, no rain, just a kind of stillness that reminds you sometimes the most painful things don't make a sound. I didn't announce my return, I didn't knock. I still had the key. No one had changed the lock. Jessica wasn't home. I figured she was busy managing the crisis, as she liked to call the days when she had to pretend to the neighbors that everything was just fine. Mike was probably still at whatever tech assistant job he always said was soul-sucking. The house was quiet. Not peaceful, no. It was the kind of silence a stage holds when actors are holding their breath for the next scene. I stepped in and gently closed the door behind me, as if some part of me still belonged to that place. The cheap orange air freshener Jessica liked still lingered. Mike's jacket was still slung across the back of the chair. The family photo was still on the wall. Forced smiles from a Christmas years ago when Emily was 3, and I still thought I was part of that picture. I walked straight to the laundry room, the little space they mockingly called my guest area. I opened the bottom drawer near the bed. Inside was a half-finished pair of wool socks I'd been knitting, and a crumpled drawing from Emily, she and I sitting under a tree with the words in green crayon, "Grandma is my tree." I folded it carefully and tucked it into my bag. No one stopped me. No one knew I'd come back. I picked up the bottle of pills I'd left on the bathroom shelf. The box of chamomile tea I'd bought Jessica had shoved it aside, saying it smelled like a hospital. I gathered every little thing I'd forgotten, like I was picking up the scattered pieces of myself. Then I stepped out into the hallway, and I saw Emily. She was standing at the top of the stairs, her eyes wide. She didn't yell. She didn't speak right away. She just looked at me, quiet and still. I set my bag down and stepped closer. Not too close. I was afraid even the sound of my steps might break that fragile moment. "Are you coming back?" she asked, her voice soft as a breeze. I shook my head. "Not to stay. I just came to grab a few last things." Emily bit her lip. Then she reached into the pocket of her pajamas and pulled out a purple hair tie, the cheap kind from Dollar Tree she always kept under her pillow. She held it out to me. "Wear it on your wrist, like when you used to walk me to school." I bent down so she could slip it on. My heart cracked, not from pain, but from how love can fit into something so small. "Do you still remember me?" she asked. I couldn't believe a 6-year-old had to ask that. I cupped her cheek. "I think about you every day, every morning. Every time I hear the school bus, I think of your eyes looking back for me. Will you come back? I don't know, I whispered, but I won't disappear, even if I'm not here. A loud crash came from downstairs. Jessica's voice followed sharp and cold like iron hitting steel. Emily, get down here, who was upstairs without closing the door. I didn't kiss her forehead. I didn't hug her. I knew I couldn't. Any gesture now might cost her a night of yelling and punishment. I just placed a hand over my heart, then let it fall. Can you close the door for me? I asked. Emily nodded, then turned and ran down the stairs. I stood there a few seconds longer, long enough to know she would do it. Long enough to burn into my heart that little figure like a gray shadow running down a hallway lit by cold light. I opened the front door. Cold wind brushed against my collar. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, I knew there was a pair of little eyes watching me all the way to the door, and that was all I needed to carry with me. The call came on a Sunday morning. I was pouring hot water into the teapot, still wearing the purple hair tie on my left wrist, Emily's quiet little gift. The phone buzzed, an unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again and again. I let it ring, then flipped it face down on the table. A few minutes later, a ping. A message. From Mike. Mom. Something's happened. Call back now. It's about Emily. My chest tightened. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. 3 missed calls from Jessica. One from the elementary school landline, the number I used to have saved, but had since deleted. I still didn't call back. I was afraid. Afraid that what I suspected was true. Afraid that what I suspected was wrong. The phone rang again. Same unknown number. This time I picked up. Mrs. Mary. A woman's voice hurried, worried. I'm Randall, Emily's teacher. I'm sorry to call on a weekend, but Emily hasn't been at school for 2 days. No one called in. I contacted her parents, and they said she's on a break. But, ma'am? I don't believe them. I gripped my mug tighter. What don't you believe? I think Emily's not okay, the teacher said softly. She once told me, if she ever got bullied or yelled at too much, she'd find you. Grandma is my safe place, she said. I didn't know whether to breathe or choke. All I could say was, do you have any idea where she might be? I'm not sure, she whispered. But a classmate named Malik said his little sister was playing with a girl named Emily. They met up behind Graceway Church on Friday in the park. I didn't wait. I called Mike back. He picked up immediately. Where is she? I asked. No small talk. We don't know. Mike gasped. Do you know where she is? No, I said flatly. But I know why she left. Jessica snatched the phone. You better cut that tone. This isn't about blame. No, I said, my voice like steel. This is about truth. She didn't disappear. She ran away from a place that made her feel small and unloved. She used to be a joyful child, and you turned her into a shadow. And now that shadow's gone, and suddenly you notice the light she carried. I hung up. No apology. No promise to call back. Just click. I went to the park behind Graceway Church, the one where I used to take Emily to watch ducks when she was in preschool. I walked slowly, eyes scanning every bench, every tree trunk. And then I saw her. Emily was sitting on the back steps of the community hall, clutching a small backpack. Beside her sat a boy, maybe 7 or 8, Malik probably. When I walked up, Emily looked up. Grandma, she whispered. I didn't run, I didn't speak. I just opened my arms. And Emily ran into them, dove in like a little bird finally finding its nest again. I'm not lost, she choked out. I just didn't want to go back. I held her tight. Her head burrowed into my chest, and my arms wrapped around that tiny, fragile back I thought I'd never get to hold again. Are you hungry? I asked softly. She nodded without a word. Then let's go home, I whispered. Our new home. I've got oatmeal and chamomile tea, and I won't ask you anything unless you're ready. Emily nodded. I'm ready, as long as it's with you. That night I made tea and placed a small cup beside mine. Emily curled up on the sofa under the blanket I crocheted last year, the one Jessica said looked like an ugly tablecloth. I watched her sleep. I knew the battle was only beginning. I knew they wouldn't stay quiet. But for now, Emily was safe. No one yelling in her face. No one ignoring her. No more covering her ears while adults screamed at each other and forgot the child trying to swallow fear down her throat. Tomorrow, I'd call CPS. Tomorrow, I'd begin the hardest part. But tonight I would guard the sleep of the child who once guarded my sanity in a house that once stopped being home. The next morning, I went to the Multnomah County Legal Aid Center with an old recycled paper bag filled with everything I had. Printed emails from Ms. Randall, copies of Emily's school reports, text messages from Mike and Jessica, and a drawing Emily made the first night she came to stay with me. She'd drawn the two of us sitting under a lamp. No yelling, no crying. I wore my oldest wool coat and carried a crossbody bag with a frayed zipper. I wasn't there to impress anyone. I was there to make sure I never stayed silent again. The center wasn't big. Just a row of cold plastic chairs, flickering fluorescent lights, a faded sign on the wall that read, Legal Aid Clinic. We listen. No judgment. When they called my name, I stood up, clutching my file like it was the last thing I still had control over. I was led into a small room with a frosted window, where a woman in her 40s with brown hair and rimless glasses introduced herself as attorney Cynthia Harlow. You're here to file for temporary guardianship, she asked, professional but not cold. I nodded. I don't have much money, but I have her. And I can't let her go back to that place. You're not her legal guardian, no. But I'm the only one Emily trusts. She listened. Really listened. I told her everything. I didn't shorten, didn't soften. I told her about the laundry room, the fights, the nights Emily shook in her sleep after dreaming her mom would leave her. I told her about the purple hair tie and the drawing that said Grandma is my tree. I told her the parts that made me feel small, like how I used to stay silent when I was insulted, how I thought being allowed to stay was enough, how I believed being treated like furniture was better than being kicked out. Attorney Harlow didn't write anything down while I cried. Only when I handed her the evidence printouts of messages, the teacher's notes, did she finally look up, her eyes sharp but not judgmental. Based on all this, she said, flipping through the pages, you've got a pretty strong case, especially with confirmation from an educator. Do I have a chance? I asked, my voice barely there. You have a better chance than most, she said firmly. I'll help you file for emergency temporary guardianship. If approved, the court will hold a hearing within 14 days. Until then, Emily can stay with you legally. I nodded, hardly believing what I was hearing. I'm not trying to take her, I said. I just want her to be safe. She looked me straight in the eye. And that's exactly why I believe you're the right one. 3 days later, the petition was officially filed. I received a hearing date Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., courtroom 6. I marked it on the calendar in red pen, circling it so many times I tore the paper. That night my phone rang. It was Mike. I picked up. You really want to turn this into a war? His voice was so cold it gave me chills. A war, I said slowly. No, I'm just looking for justice. Jessica grabbed the phone. You have no right. You're not family. You're broke. You have nothing. You think you can keep Emily with some silly letters and a kid who talks nonsense. I stayed silent. Then I said what I'd held back for over 5 years under their roof. And what do you have? A house a child doesn't want to return to. A truth that everyone sees but you. And a son who once called me mom, but now can't even look me in the eye. Mike went quiet. Jessica hung up. No goodbye. Nothing. I walked back to the bed where Emily was coloring. She looked up and smiled, that kind of smile I never once saw in that old house. "Grandma, can you take me to school tomorrow?" Ms. Randall said. "If I feel ready, I can come back." I nodded. "I'll be waiting at the gate, and I won't disappear." Emily handed me a piece of paper, a new drawing, 2 chairs, a small table, a bowl of oatmeal, and crayon-scrawled words that said, "Home is where someone's waiting for you. Doesn't have to be big, just has to be real." That morning, I wore my cream cardigan buttoned neatly with my hair brushed back in a low bun. No makeup, I didn't need it. I wasn't going to court to make an impression. I was going to protect a promise. A 6-year-old promise wrapped in the tiny hug Emily gave me the first night she finally slept without waking in fear. We arrived at the Multnomah County Family Court at 8:32. Emily wore her navy plaid dress and held her old stuffed animal, the fox, with one torn ear from when she was 3. She sat beside me, legs swinging. She didn't ask questions. I didn't say anything either. We just held hands. Attorney Cynthia Harlow arrived right on time, carrying a neat folder and wearing a look sharp as steel. I knew I had chosen the right person. The door to courtroom 6 opened at 9:02. No bell, no announcement. Just a quiet voice, "Mary Simmons and all parties involved, please come in." The courtroom was small. No jury. Just one judge, Clara Nguyen Thin, billed salt and pepper hair, a face you couldn't read, not happy, not angry, just still. Mike and Jessica were already seated. Mike wore a white shirt, gray tie with dark circles under his eyes. Jessica wore a fake professional cream blazer, bright red lipstick, sitting upright like she was in a job interview, but neither of them looked at me. Neither looked at Emily. "We are here today." Judge Clara began to review the emergency petition for temporary guardianship filed by Mary Simmons for the minor Emily Simmons. "Petitioner is present. Respondents are also present." Her tone was calm, but the room felt heavy as stone. Attorney Harlow spoke first. "Your Honor, we present that my client, Mary Simmons, is the biological grandmother of Emily Simmons. In recent weeks, she has provided the only stable, safe, and non-threatening environment for the child, emotionally and physically. We have supporting statements from Emily's teacher, a CPS worker, and the child herself expressing her wish to remain with her grandmother." The judge nodded. "Let me see the documentation." Harlow stepped forward and handed over Ms. Randall's statement. "Emily shows signs of anxiety, avoids social interaction, and only appears calm when talking about her grandmother." The evidence was passed to Mike and Jessica's lawyer, a slick-haired man named Edward Grant, who flipped through the file with a smirk. "Your Honor," he said afterward, "we object. My clients Mike and Jessica are the legal parents. This so-called running away was just a phase, and Ms. Simmons's decision to keep the child without notifying them could be considered interference with parental custody. I informed CPS the very same day," I said calmly. "And I called my son. I didn't hide. I protected." Grant scoffed. "Do you have any proof the child was abused?" "They didn't hit me," Emily said softly. but I was scared. I was scared of the yelling, scared of the looks, scared Mom didn't see me like her daughter. Only Grandma helps me sleep without nightmares. Silence fell over the room. Jessica let out a loud breath. She's just acting. The judge raised her hand. No interruptions. I want to hear everything. I didn't look at Mike. I didn't need to anymore. I simply said I'm not here to fight. I'm here because no 6-year-old should have to learn how to stay silent when they're hurting. I'm not rich. I don't have expensive lawyers. But I have the one thing Emily needs: someone who listens. Judge Clara was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. This court finds that the petitioner has provided sufficient evidence showing the current environment is safe and stable for the child. Therefore, temporary guardianship is granted to Mary Simmons for a period of 60 days pending further ruling. She signed the order. The soft click of her pen felt like a bell ringing freedom. Jessica shot me a glare like fire, then stormed out. Mike followed behind, quiet. No final words, no glance back. I looked down at Emily. She squeezed my hand tighter. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. I had won. Not by yelling louder, but by loving clearer. It's been 2 months since the hearing. No calls from Mike. No apology from Jessica. Not a single letter, text, or sign that we were ever a family. I had prepared for a legal counterattack. I expected appeals, high-priced lawyers, a year-long tug of war. But nothing came. And that said everything. They didn't lose Emily because I took her. They let her slip into the silence of their own coldness and ego. Emily now attends a small public elementary school just 4 blocks from my apartment. I walk her there every morning, not by car, by foot, because Emily likes to walk. She says, "You have to go slow to see the cat on the 2nd floor balcony at house number 38. Every evening, we eat dinner together at a folding wooden table, old, but enough for 2 bowls and a pot of chamomile tea. Emily sleeps in a little bed by the window, where she can see the glow from the laundromat sign through the curtain. At first, I worried the light would keep her awake. But no, Emily said. It's like you're watching over me even when you're not in the room. I placed a fake plant on the windowsill, a cheap one with shiny plastic leaves, but Emily taped a little paper to it. Happy plant, it lives just fine without water. I've never taken it down. A week ago, she brought home a drawing from art class, 2 hands holding each other with a tiny building in the background, and these crooked words. Home isn't big, but it listens. I quietly stuck the picture on the fridge with an old avocado magnet. I didn't cry when I did it. I just stood there for a while, hand on my chest. And for the first time, I believed with no doubt that I had done the right thing. Sometimes at night, when I'm doing the dishes, and Emily's working on her homework, I still find my mind wandering to the old family, but it doesn't tighten my chest anymore. It feels more like a chapter you've already closed, not because it wasn't important, but because you've read enough of it. I used to think I had to forgive, to fix it, to fight for what was lost. But then I realized, sometimes you don't need to fix a family. You just need to stop letting it break you, and break the child who comes after you. Emily doesn't need a family full of people. She needs one adult who knows when to stop. Last night she asked me, "Do you think I'll have to go back to that house?" I didn't say, "No way." I didn't promise I'll protect you forever. I just said, if one day you have to go back, you won't be the same, because now you know what peace feels like. And once you've felt that you can't stand pretending anymore. Emily nodded and turned back to her work. No more questions. None needed. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe another court hearing will come. Maybe it'll drag on. Or maybe Jessica will give up because Emily isn't useful to her anymore. But I know this. Every morning Emily wakes up, there's a bowl of warm oatmeal. There's an adult who doesn't yell. There's a room with a door that doesn't need locking. And there's a hug, no permission needed. To me, that's not an ending. That's a real beginning.